In a row house in East Boston, a leaking pipe flooded a basement filled with archive boxes. Only one box survived. Inside, a collection of letters describing another era when American liberties were threatened by government control. In the 1950s, Senator Joseph McCarthy was hunting for communist agents inside America. Hundreds of innocent people were accused of collaborating with the Soviets. Some were forced out of their jobs and even jailed. One man spoke out for them, the greatest physicist in history, Albert Einstein. Every day, letters from people being persecuted by McCarthy's investigations would arrive at his home in Princeton, New Jersey.
McCarthy, during his evil work, was managing to destroy the careers of hundreds of people. Ordinary persons, not academics necessarily. So people were so frightened at that time that they turned to Einstein for advice about it. And he tried very hard to put them at ease, to give them advice how to deal with the attackers, because they thought that a man who is in contact with eternity can do anything.
One of those who wrote to Einstein was Gene Sharp, a 25-year-old from Ohio who had just completed his first book on Gandhi's use of nonviolent resistance. When the Korean War broke out, he knew he had to refuse conscription.
Dear Dr. Einstein, in about 3 weeks, I shall be sent to prison because of my refusal to be inducted into the Army. This I accept because, according to my philosophy, I must try to live and work for the ideals in which I believe and their application in building a better world. Accompanying this letter is the manuscript of a book I have recently finished. It contains 3 historically moving accounts of Gandhi's application of this method in the political sphere, with the hope that it will offer the public some evidence that there is another way of opposing injustice rather than through the holocaust of atomic war. I felt that perhaps you would be willing to write an introduction to this book. Would you?
Einstein wrote back immediately,
I admire you earnestly for your moral strengths, and I can only hope, but not really know, that I would have acted as you do if I would have found myself in the same situation. There is a sphere of conflicts between the written laws of one's country and the unwritten law, the existence of which shows itself in what we call our conscience. I believe he saw in this man, in Gene Sharp, the very model of what Gandhi was able to achieve in mass, namely a person who was not just fighting to keep his position, as most people did who approached him. This man said, I am ready for my resistance, by taking the consequences, hoping that many of us will do it, so the state will have to give in.
Gene quoted Einstein's letters at his trial, but while the judge appeared sympathetic, he sentenced him to 2 years in prison. As he began his sentence, another of Einstein's letters to a high school teacher, William Frauenglass, found its way into the New York Times. Its contents were explosive. Einstein echoed Gene's call to resist using Gandhi's methods. He suggested that Americans should break the law if necessary. He told Frauenglass, frankly, I can only see the revolutionary way of non-cooperation in Gandhi's sense. Every intellectual who's called before one of these committees ought to refuse to testify.
It is always astonishing to find that a man of great intellectual power in some directions is a simpleton or even a jackass in others.
Despite the attacks, Einstein still took time to write back.
Dear Mr. Sharp, I was glad about your letter. It shows that everywhere there are people who respect those who are following their conscience.
Your encouragement and assistance came at a time when they were most appreciated. I will always remember that, and hope that I can live up to deserve the confidence in which you have evidenced. Your friend, Gene Sharp.
Gene was released after 9 months, but just weeks later, the man who had guided him through his darkest days, Einstein, passed away.
when the death of Albert Einstein was announced to the world.
With Einstein's support, Gene Sharp went on to become the world's foremost expert on nonviolent resistance. His books used everywhere, from the jungles of Burma to Serbia, Ukraine, and the Arab Spring. And today, 60 years later, people defying oppression all around the world now write to Gene Sharp asking for help.